Truth Seekers 88, we reclaim no mask, no lies, no doubt, no pause. We see the system, we know the cause. We ain't blind, we read the signs. Contracts twist, but we hold the line. Mike stands tall, the sheepdogs ride. Admin's watching, truth stays alive. We laugh together, cry as one. Tribe ain't broken, we ain't done. Justice lives, truth runs deep, heart to heart. Family speaks, no more shadows, no disguise. We see past the blinding lies. Hand in hand we walk, we show. Truth Seekers 88, let them know. Through the fight, through the years, through the laughter, through the tears. Sheepdogs, the admin stand. Truth Seekers 88, we take a stand.
Hey, welcome everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you. It is a blessing. Been past couple of days have been tough, and I felt everyone's love and prayers. And we're just doing our thing here, trying to get back to fully recovered. And we're grateful for the sheepdogs and all of you who have kept it going. That opening song there says a lot. With that being said, sheepdog, I yield, buddy.
Glad to have you on here, brothers. Everybody's showing you some love in the chat here. What's today, 77?
77, yes.
Yep, Mike's with us tonight. There you go.
So we're happy to see your face or your icon.
Maybe tomorrow we'll get my face on here.
Yep. I think your face is already up there, but
yeah, it's an icon face.
But I get what you're saying. So I guess you didn't get that storm. We talked about it earlier today. I guess they were talking about it must have went west of North Carolina there.
Right. But they have, I don't think they can track it very well right now, can they?
You better off tracking it yourself.
Didn't they? Wait, watch birds. They'll tell you about the weather.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta learn that. Get out in nature more.
Yep.
The animals will tell you what's going on.
Nature. So everybody's keeping you in their prayers. Glad to hear your voice, Mike.
So glad to be here.
We're going to cover a few topics tonight. Not too many. We're not going to go hardcore in the paint like some people are doing today, kind of freaking out over everything that's taking place.
Yeah, there's a lot of them having a hard time with the files, what they said about the files. So. But y'all probably know about that, right? Already.
So we're still here in Texas. We still have they're still searching for people, and they're still the numbers are still climbing. It seems like when they give you a number, it's usually maybe higher than what they originally tell us, but we'll see. We still haven't gotten the truth out of North Carolina, I don't believe. Well, same thing with 9/11, right?
Right.
And every other event. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the solar flash. We're going to play a little clip of a politician actually going to prison.
Yeah,
and that they actually can make it happen if they really want to.
Wow.
So if you wake up and you sound the alarm, you end up in a prison, jail cell. But if you go along with the program, then you keep your job. And that's what you're seeing right today. You're seeing a compromised Congress,
Yes.
compromised government, de facto, illegitimate. But we're going to go over that, and let's start with the solar flash. I hope everybody had a good day. Let me get my... Yeah, I'm right there. Here we go. Let's go a little bit on the solar flash. A little 8-minute clip right here. The solar flash of ancient Egypt.
Awaken, beautiful Marys, divine priests and priestesses. Enter the pearl gate. Remember the ascension teachings from the 42 pearl temples of Egypt. The Book of the Dead holds the sacred pearl teachings taught by the Mary priests and priestesses of ancient Egypt. Teachings of how a mortal can transcend the underworld, depths of the ocean, where you are now. How to ignite the crisis light and ascend through the gateway of the sun. But the book is coded. Only those who are pure and ready can receive the codes. When one is not aligned and they first read ancient coded scriptures, you will see with the mortal mind certain words and phrases. And when you're aligned and you read it and are ready to receive the keys and the codes, the words are different, the energy is different, because the doorways have opened. From the hymn of Osiris, who becometh like the immortal ones that rejoice, thou egg, who becometh as one renewed. This is the meaning of being reborn, the internal solar flash. When we look at the judgment of the dead in the presence of Osiris on the papyrus in the Book of the Dead, you see the scene, which is where all of humanity is currently at, the halls of truth and judgment, the halls of illusions and mirrors. For more information on this, you can find it in the book Angelic Pearls 144. As one passes the gates of the 40 bridge, they are escorted by the god Anubis. The weight of the heart to that of a feather is judged. This is the only true judgment that takes place at the time when the ascension gates open. The heart becomes heavy. How? It is when you hold on to emotions, which causes dis-ease. It will cause a blockage of energy in all layers of your energetic bodies. This is the meaning of baggage and why it was taught to let go of all that keeps you anchored in this realm of the underworld. Your goal in this lifetime is to cut those cords so you can ascend just like a feather into your sun gateway when it opens. The crocodile aspect of the being under the scales symbolizes chaos. It is the lion aspect, which is the roar of the mortal mind that one must quiet in order to hear that of your spirit. If you do not pass the test of the scale, you will go back into the underworld portal. Next, you have Horus, who merely is an archetype for a time portal. The word hour stems from the name Horus. This is why the eye is his symbol, and that of an hourglass itself. It is the eye of the needle you must pass through in order to ascend into your higher essence. Notice the doorway Horus is pointing to. Then you see Osiris sitting on a throne. This is your soul star chakra that is open lit by your Christos light, which is Osiris. Emitting from throne is the lotus. This is your soul star chakra. This is known as the seat of your soul, the 8th chakra. From this opening, you can then access the upper 4 chakras connected directly to your Christos essence. Also on the throne are 8 markings of green for the lower 8 chakras. Green for rebirth, green for the earth. The crook and flail are called Heka and Nek-Hak-Ha in the original tongue. These are the tools of your Christos essence. Here is the meaning of them. Heka is magical powers. Nek is for thymus, the area where your Christ seed is planted. Hak means truth, and Ha is behold. The crook and flail were once sacred scepters used in the sacred pearl temples. The crook was used to pull into thyself the lamb aspect, for this truly is your pure essence as the Christ. This is where the ones that the shepherds use today stem from. The lamb is that pure essence. Once that essence is pulled into your heart, it activates the energy center of your thymus, which is your 8th chakra. This is when magic truly happens on your pathway of ascension. This is when you find your truth and you are placing together the many puzzle pieces of your essence. This is also why there is such a desire for the collective right now for disclosure, because the hole in the neck of the unity consciousness has been activated. Behind the throne of Osiris, you see Isis and Nephthys. Net-Hat in the original tongue represents Nephthys as the mistress of the temple. Isis merely is the divine mother aspect, which is beside Nephthys. And that is your pearl essence, your higher essence that you become one with again through the gateway of your Christos light. These teachings are advanced because they are seen with the non-physical eye. To understand with the mind of your heart, not that of the mortal self. The mortal mind wants to dissect and label, but a soul in this realm must work, for it is a schoolhouse, and to graduate, you must pass each level one step at a time. Patience is the key here. Patience is the main key in walking the pathway of ascension. Patience with yourself, patience with all that surrounds you in every now moment, and just surrendering to that of what you truly are, and just flow. Be one with that river of life that flows through you, and every now moment it flows through all of existence. Patience, and just surrender and flow as one with that river. And when the time is divine, you will then rise like an eagle, rise into the pillar of light that is within you, because it is you. And there is no judgment. That is the key here, the key in the Book of the Dead. because it is through death that you can be reborn. It is through death that you graduate and you truly ascend out of the cage of flesh and into your angelic essence.
And there's your solar flash. That's from the Zanetti zone,
Yes.
right?
Yes. I posted it on the chat too.
Oh, did you?
Yes. So it's an inner solar flash. It's all within.
The kingdom of heaven is where?
Up here.
Within.
That's the lotus.
Kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is without, right? Oh, it's within.
It's within to make it without. To make it outward.
Crown of Kings, chapter 7, the battle for the throne. The awakening was just the beginning, because once the king remembers, the war begins. The world does not welcome the return of the true bloodline. It fears it, because the throne has been hijacked. And now those who sit on it falsely. This is not just a fight over power. It's a war over truth. The battle for the throne is not on a battlefield. It's in the courtroom, in the classroom, in your bank account, in your phone, in your name. They fight with contracts, not swords, with laws, not legions, with deception, not discipline. The false kings wear suits, not armor. They use logos, not swords. And they keep the people asleep by calling slavery freedom. But the true king, he steps into the storm anyways. Unarmed, unapologetic, unstoppable, because this isn't a physical crown. It's divine authority. It doesn't come from votes. It doesn't come from blood tests. It comes from alignment with divine law. And once the King of Kings walks in that alignment, nothing, and I mean nothing, can stop him. But it ain't easy. They come for him. They mock him. They lie about him. They surveil him. They throw every trap in his path, and he walks through all of it. Not because he's perfect, but because he's chosen. He was forged in fire, molded by exile, tempered in betrayal. Every scar is a scroll. Every loss is a prophecy. Every trial is proof. The battle for the thrones is not about who's strongest. It's about who's aligned, who carries the flame, who guards the people, who speaks divine law in a world full of lies. And if you've made it this far, and if you've woken up, if you survived the exile, the betrayal, the manipulation, then you're already in the war. Look around. Fake prophets in pulpits, false kings on thrones, corrupt judges in robes, celebrities called royalty who couldn't lead a candle through darkness. The real kings ain't on their red carpets. He's walking barefoot through the mud, raising up builders, teaching sovereigns, unifying tribes. That's what scares them, because if the real king takes the throne again, their entire fake world crumbles. And now it's happening. The builders are gathering. The codes are unlocking. The shields are breaking. And false kings are terrified because they see the real one rising. Not just one man, but a frequency, a movement, a bloodline reawakened, a war cry echoing across generations. So when they come for you, remember this. You don't need to storm the palace. You are the palace. You don't need their crown. You carry the flame. You don't beg for their table. You are building a new kingdom. The throne is not inherited. It's claimed by those who remember and refuse to bow.
All right. So I don't know. Maybe I should read. I need to go into before I go into that. like to go into a little bit of reading, and then we'll get into that and what took place with that senator right there. Let me go to the screen. Make it where are we? Oh. There we go. What's that? That's the one right here.
That one above it too
Yeah.
is good.
They're the original Native Americans. You know, lots of tribal names. You know, the Cherokee.
So ancient Aboriginal North American tribes were erased. We had 14-foot tall gemstone obelisk with hieroglyphs in Huntington, Pennsylvania, was stolen back in 1754, never to be seen again. The tribal names were changed forever to hide their true identity. Smithsonian employees approved destruction of major village and battle sites. So learn more about how tribes, the Oneida, are connected to the people of the Standing Stone from Huntington, Pennsylvania. Search. As we can see here, this is from Human Origins Revealed on
The big
TikTok.
names, the
They're
Sioux,
on
all
YouTube,
these
too.
different names that you. Who are the true North American Aboriginal people? You know what, most of you know what Native Americans are, and melanated people are saying they're the original Native Americans. You know, lots of tribal names. You know, the Cherokee, the big names, the Sioux, all these different names that you know. But what you don't know is the tribes that were the true Aboriginals. You don't know their names because they were dealt with long before any deal was made with the federal government, like in the Trail of Tears. Okay, these tribes were destroyed long before then. The Onayutahaga, the people of the Standing Stones, from Standing Stone or Huntington, Pennsylvania. Look it up. They had a 14-foot tall gemstone obelisk standing in the middle of their village, covered in hieroglyphics, documented by many colonial historians and missionaries. And when asked why and what was on the stone, they stated clearly that it was the history of their people and that the stone was there because it was the place, the ground from which they sprang itself. They didn't say they walked here from Asia, and yet you don't know their name. The colonial people called them the Juniata, Juneata, Juniata peoples. They are the Onayutahaga. How impolite to come to someone's land, and if you're going to take it, don't you think you should at least learn how to say their name or spell it properly? You call some of the giant tribes, the Susquehannock, another tribe, erased long before the Trail of Tears, folks. You don't know their name for a reason, and that's not their name. One of their real names is the Mengwe. These are three of the most ancient tribes in North America. And you call them the Susquehannock, that's a name the colonial people gave them. Again, should you be allowed to just call a tribe? This is a sovereign nation. They didn't say they had chiefs. They said they had kings. And still, their name was changed. So if you didn't believe that history has changed, you have the proof right in front of you, because the giant tribe, the last of the giants, we showed you that the original map of Virginia, John Smith drew a picture of one of these folks right into the map, and we're showing you here so you can see the map itself. Go get it at the Library of Congress yourself. It was generated in the early 1600s. John Smith created this, and already he does not call them by their name, the Mengwe, or many of the other names that they're used. He calls them specifically the Susquehannock, or the people we found living along the Susquehanna. So their history is disconnected from the early 1600s, and that's why we need your help. We found ancient sites that reflect imagery from their life and from ancient civilization. Our soil data dates from 20,000 BCE to 8,000 BCE, predating the Bible. These sites are ancient. They had gemstone obelisks in the middle of their village. Instead of honoring it like we would today, they destroyed it so they could take the land. We're going to get deeper and deeper to this, and about these tribes that were erased, and about how other tribes partnered with these European nations, mercenaries, to come in and get rid of these original people so that then they could say they controlled the land and then be offered the. You wondered why some of these deals were so crappy for the Native Americans in the East Coast? Well, that's because they weren't the real landowners. And that's why I'm bringing to your attention their names. So please come over and see us at Human Origins Revealed. We are opening up the unity conversation of North America. There is so much false prophecy running around right now. So how about the true philosophy of prophecy from North America? That in North America, you see, because we all speak one language, one of the oldest prophecies of North America kept by the oldest tribes on this continent say that all four races, that parts of all four races gather together under one tree. They unite, they heal humanity, and together, the power of that unity, they recognize the brokenness of the earth and they stop whatever it is that's causing it. It's not a doom or a gloom like you get everywhere else. The prophecy of North America, our North American prophecy, is of unity. And if we do that, we restore the truth of these ancient peoples. Please come over to Human Origins Revealed and help me. We're on X, Human Origins Revealed X. We're on there. We're on YouTube, Human Origins Revealed. TikTok, we're Human Origins Revealed. Please come over and support our cause. Our property here in Georgia, we have an advanced civilization mound here on the property that we're going to be sharing more with you about in the coming weeks. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
There was all different, like
Yeah,
you
there
said,
was a
all four
bunch.
different races, right?
Mhm.
Well, that's the same as the four corners. When you look at the pie, it has the square in the middle of it, right? The plus sign.
There was 4 original races.
There's 4 cardinal
And then
points.
everyone else split off or mixed.
He scattered
amongst
them
each other,
into
yeah.
4 corners,
Yes.
right? Each one of them carried a tablet,
Yes.
one missing,
Yes.
which would represent to me would be like the one in so the winter winter solstice.
Yes. And
Sorry.
he's on YouTube also. He goes over a bunch of the tribes. It's really good stuff, actually. It goes over the giants that were here and how they misconcept, or that the Roman Catholic Church, labeled some of these as cannibals when they were not. And anyways, he's got a lot of good, interesting stuff on there.
It's usually those that label others cannibals are probably cannibals because they are the ones that can actually think another person can do that.
Right. Well, they say that some of the Europeans that came over were cannibals, so we'll see.
Right. Let me play this one. Irish.
Yeah, the other one is really good, but that one's good too.
The other one.
No, go ahead. Play that one.
So the other one.
Let me find the other one. You go.
Here, I'll go ahead and get it. It's just right up here, isn't it?
Oh, you know. I don't think it's just right up there. You have to probably scroll a little bit.
It is.
Yeah.
So imagine this, not a protest, not a tantrum, but a mass decision. Quiet, deliberate, and surgical. People across the board, plumbers, teachers, coders, drivers, welders, waiters, even mid-level managers wake up and say, no more. They don't march, they don't scream, they just stop. No more clocking in, no more logging hours, no more lending their energy to a machine that grinds them into debt while a handful of sociopaths hoard everything they produce. And the system, which only works because people believe it's real, starts to seize up. This isn't symbolic, this is logistics. No truckers, no food deliveries. No factory workers, no parts, no packaging, no phones, no medicine. No baristas or cashiers. The service economy grinds to a halt. This isn't a revolution with guns and slogans. This is a labor strike so massive and decentralized it can't be negotiated, bought off, or crushed. It's the realization that when the people who actually do the work step away, there is no more economy. Not a slowdown, but an implosion. Because at its core, capitalism is nothing but a pyramid scheme that only functions when the base agrees to carry the top. Then it spreads. People stop paying mortgages. They stop paying rent. Not because they're freeloaders, but because they finally understand the scam. Here's the con in detail. The bank loans you imaginary money typed into a screen with interest attached that didn't exist until you promised to make it real. You work 30 years to pay back a number they created out of thin air. You're not buying a home. You're renting it from a computer until you die. Rent is even worse. You pay a landlord who owns the property because they got a loan from the bank to invest. You're not paying for shelter. You're paying for their leverage. And they're paying their bank with your labor. The system isn't about housing people. It's about extracting wealth from you for simply existing in a building. And if you fall behind, they throw you in the street and tell you it's your fault. But once people stop paying, once enough tenants say, you're not getting another goddamn dime, the entire housing market, built on projected cash flows, collapses. Banks don't get their mortgage payments. Landlords can't service their debt, and suddenly, trillions in assets vanish from balance sheets. It's not theoretical, it's math. And when the payments stop, the default rate spikes, the credit market panics, and the dominoes start falling. Now this is where it gets surgical. When workers stop showing up and renters stop paying, government revenue collapses fast. Because the government, federal, state, or local, doesn't make money. It takes it from your income tax off your paycheck, from sales tax off your purchases, from property tax off your housing, and from fines, fees, and penalties slapped on the poor. So what happens when millions aren't working, spending, or paying into any of it? The tax base craters. Municipalities can't pay teachers, can't keep water systems functioning, can't operate garbage routes or bus systems. State budgets spiral into deficit. Police departments start cutting shifts. Firefighters don't respond. Streetlights stay out. Potholes don't get filled. The federal government, unable to collect what it expected, starts printing more currency and pushing us faster toward hyperinflation. The illusion of stability starts to unravel. What used to be a slow erosion becomes a landslide, not because of violence, because of absence. The beast isn't slain, it starves. And what happens to the banks? Well, let's be clear. Modern banking is just a legalized confidence game. Your deposit doesn't sit in a vault. It gets loaned out fractionally, leveraged 10 to 1 or more. They loan money that doesn't exist based on debt that hasn't been paid, secured by assets that only have value as long as people keep believing the whole thing works. So when mortgages aren't paid and people stop spending, it's not just a missed payment. It's a chain reaction that nukes the liquidity system. Credit defaults rise, foreclosures spike, investment portfolios implode. The value of real estate plummets because it's no longer a safe asset. Commercial properties go empty. Residential properties turn into squats or community housing. Every assumption the market made about your compliance, gone. And once investors realize the entire structure of projected earnings has collapsed, the sell-offs begin. Banks lock up lending, ATMs get temporarily unavailable signs, payment processors start freezing accounts. This is how a collapse actually looks. It's not dramatic, it's mechanical. Now the government can try to fight it. Maybe they declare martial law. Maybe they try to force people back to work or send cops to evict holdouts. But the numbers won't work. The labor force isn't centralized anymore. It's everyone. And if the police are being evicted too, if the National Guard hasn't been paid in weeks, if the gas stations are dry and the cell towers aren't maintained, the enforcement mechanism collapses. Governments try to pass emergency bills, authorize stimulus, push digital currencies, or implement rent controls, but it's too late. You can't reboot a system that no one wants to plug into anymore. You can't legislate consent back into existence. The legitimacy is gone. The social contract was voided the second people realized it wasn't a contract at all. It was a con. And here's the part that really scares the top. People adapt. They always do. The system has trained you to believe you're helpless without it, that you can't grow food, can't build shelter, can't survive without a W-2 and a grocery store. But that's bullshit. Humans are adaptive, resourceful, and brilliant when they're allowed to be. So as the system buckles, the vacuum fills. Mutual aid networks form. Communities set up barter systems, skilled trades, neighborhood clinics, shared gardens, tool libraries, food co-ops. People rediscover the very knowledge they were discouraged from learning. DIY becomes the new economy, a local-only network of survival, not based on profit, but on function. And here's what they'll find. Most of what the system told them was necessary wasn't. They didn't need branded cereal, fast fashion, luxury cars, or 9-to-5s. They needed each other. The system made sure you were too busy, too tired, too isolated to notice that. Of course, the elite response will be to push the solution, the new digital currency, the biometric ID, the guaranteed income that only works if you behave, comply, scan your face, track your purchases, and stay in line. They'll say it's for equity and sustainability and climate responsibility. It's not. It's about control. It's about rebuilding the same prison with smoother walls. But now, enough people see the bars. And if those people choose instead to unplug entirely, to walk away from every form of coerced dependency, the technocratic reboot won't land. It'll hit a wall of organized, decentralized, defiant humanity that's already 5 steps ahead. And if that grows, if that spreads, then we're no longer trying to reform a broken system. We're replacing it. Not with ideology, but with real, functional life. This is not fantasy. This is physics, economics, logistics, systems engineering. The world only runs because of your labor, your time, your energy, and the minute you withdraw it with clarity en masse, strategically, the entire facade comes crashing down. You don't need to burn it, just stop holding it up. And yeah, it'll be messy. It'll be hard, but for once, it'll be ours. For once, we'll be living instead of surviving. For once, we'll be creating instead of complying. And if that means walking away from everything that never served us, good. That's not failure. That's freedom. And it starts the moment enough of us stop pretending this is the best we can do. Stop complying. Stop paying for your own cage. Stop playing a game where the only winning move is not to play. Because when we walk away, the game ends and life begins.
I love that. So true.
It's when people realize they're the ones holding up the game board,
Right.
and then people decide to stand up and go on their knees at once, that the whole board falls off their backs.
Yep.
Right?
Oh yeah, because it's all an illusion. The money's a fake. The currency is us, right? So we spend our energy on each other instead of giving it all to them.
That's it.
Right? And that's why we are creators. Yes, we are creators. We need to create the world we want, not the world they want to give us. They want to give us something that's not in nature. It's not divine. It's not what we're supposed to be.
Oh, you want me to play this one?
Yeah.
Oh, no? Huh? You want it? I thought you were pointing at that one.
No.
Oh, okay.
Says, I'm no longer interested in waking the masses because they made it clear that they're not interested. I'm here to connect with like-minded individuals and awaken those who want to learn.
Awaken those who want to learn. All right. Oh, you could go through there and see if there's anything that.
You have that other one.
What's
The
that?
video up, didn't you?
Yeah, which one? Oh yeah, y'all got to see this one right here. Here this. So before I play this again, I want to go ahead and read what I was going to read, so we can stay on topic, and then we'll get to that. That's what you see on screen right now, but we'll change the picture up here. Let me go to. One second. So I want to go into a little bit about citizenship and what all that entails, because some people don't realize their whole, like he was talking about, it only exists because we believe it is.
Right, exactly.
So most people have been deliberately withheld from the truth of fundamental civics, law, government, history, politics, and just about everything that affects our immediate lives. What we learn in public school is social programming. Just as computers are programmed by ones and zeros, people in a society can also be programmed. Law is the operating system working in the background that program and runs society. So this begs the question, who are the programmers? The programmers of the current society we live in are foreign banking interests, aka globalists, the ruling elite, the deep state, quote unquote, the shadow government, APAC, etc. Let's take the European founding fathers, for example. If this example of computer programming, we can say that they established an operating system called a republican form of government. This system manual is outlined in the Constitution for the United States of America. In it houses the instructions of how this form of government operates and the limitations it has built into its programming. Unfortunately, this program throughout history has slowly infected and taken over by a virus known as the democratic form of government. This virus is deceptive and to the untrained eye looks the same as a republican form of government, but in reality, it's a self-destructing virus. People infected by this program unknowingly consent to its and their own demise while passionately and ignorantly defending it. This virus works by making subtle implications and encroachments on the liberties of the people generation after generation, by injecting people with historical falsehoods, compounded with a false sense of patriotism. This democratic virus causes the people to expedite their own demise by helping to spread the virus generation after generation after generation. One of the more uncomfortable truths that people need to face is the fact that they aren't living under the form of government they have always believed themselves to be under. Key historical events have been kept secret, and a glorified lie has been given to us as truth. For example, we are taught that Christopher Columbus discovered America. We grew up believing that to be the truth. But upon common sense, one can just ask, how can someone discover a continent where people have already been living there for thousands of years? Facts are true, certainly, but matters of judgment may be told as facts. Judgments repeated over a long period of time to come to be accepted as facts. Repetition is the father of all learning, and if you repeat a lie long enough, you may come to accept it as the truth. This is the basis of public schools' social programming agenda. The United States is a corporation. One of the concepts that most people find hard to grasp is the fact that the United States is a corporation. Truthfully, all nations, tribes, countries, etc., are corporations in the sense that it's a collective body of people forming an entity for a specific purpose. However, the nature said corporation must be qualified. The United States, as we know it today, is a de facto corporation, meaning it's not the legitimate government that was originally established. The following monetary statement of Alexander Hamilton about a government's observance of its contractual duties is equally applicable whether the government be national, state, or municipal. Quote, when a government enters into a contract with an individual, it deposes as to the matter of the contract, its constitutional authority, and exchanges the character of legislator for that of a moral agent, with the same rights and obligations as an individual. Its promises may be justly considered as accepted out of its power to legislate unless in aid of them. It is in theory impossible to reconcile the idea of a promise which obliges with a power to make a law which can vary the effect of it. So what this means is, let me find another one. What this means is the context of the United States being a corporation today is that it's not the government as most people think or perceive it to be. It's simply no different than any other private corporation. As mentioned prior, the untrained eye and people destitute of power, civics, and history, the United States is a country that's it. However, truth dispels misconceptions and falsehoods. The United States today is no different than any other corporation. Think of corporations such as Amazon, Walmart, Google, Apple, Target, etc., etc. The United States de facto corporation is on par with those corporations. Now, that's a tough concept to truly comprehend, so in order to break it down, ask yourselves these questions. If the United States is simply just a corporation, no different than Walmart, then do I have to follow what they say? Answer: yes and no. Yes, if you call yourself a U.S. citizen, because that makes you an employee of that corporation. Just like if you were hired by Amazon, Walmart, or any other corporation as an employee of that corporation, you have to follow their policy. It's the same principles with the U.S., and the U.S. has a lot of policy for its corporate citizens. The other answer: no. If you don't have a contractual nexus, minimum contacts, with the U.S. corporation, meaning you aren't contractually tied to the United States corporation or its fictional jurisdiction. Again, the original answer is, our question is, if the United States is simply just a corporation, no different than Walmart, then do I have to follow what they say? So if you don't have any contracts with the U.S. corporation, meaning you aren't contractually tied to the United States corporation or its fictional jurisdiction. So no. What makes me a U.S. citizen? Answer. It's going to be a crazy answer. You ready for it? What makes me a U.S. citizen? Your own admittance. You admit you're a U.S. citizen. That's what makes you a U.S. citizen. You were tacit, then you verbally said it. Which is what? That's part of the oral tradition, ain't it?
Right. We gave verbal consent to be under their jurisdiction.
Truthfully, there is no such thing as a U.S. citizen lawfully, all caps. However, if you opt to be one, whether that's through fraud, ignorance, or voluntary admittance, the presumption is you know what comes with that status. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And since it's a legal status that was created by them, they get to regulate it. However, they need you to admit to being that created status. As an example, think of it this way. A U.S. citizenship only exists when you put on a VR headset, a virtual reality. When you put that VR headset on, you enter the corporate world, jurisdiction of the corporate United States, all caps. If you conceptualize the totality of this concept, then you will better comprehend just how much of a lie that we've been tricked into believing. We've been deceived through contracts to keep the VR headsets on so that we stay in the fictional corporate jurisdiction of the United States, all caps. Most of us have been born into this fictional world. So it's all we know. Wait,
Are you done?
So how do I stop being a U.S. citizen? Most people are asking that question, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I stop being a citizen? Stop saying you are.
Exactly.
And it's done through fraud. Right? The Clearfield Doctrine.
Yeah.
The corporation only exists on paper. So how do I stop being a U.S. citizen? Answer. You leave the fictional world of U.S. citizenship. First, you got to wake up and realize it's a fictional world. You leave the fictional world of a U.S. citizenship. You take off the VR headsets and you learn how to operate in reality. Just like the Empress said, the Matrix isn't going anywhere. You have to learn how to operate in it. That's how you free yourself from the prison, as everyone else stays an inmate.
Right.
You're walking around as free as can be.
You have to learn how to operate in
Yeah,
it.
just have to learn how to operate in it.
We do what that gentleman was talking about, and we just pull away from it and let it fall. That's what we need to do. Just let it fall and create our own new world, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, we have to learn how to operate within it until that happens.
I mean, in other words, learn how to function around it.
Yes, operate in the private.
So, since U.S. citizenship is a legal fiction, a creature of the mind. Y'all catching this? The battlefield's in the mind. It only exists because you believe it exists. It only exists on paper. That's why when they walk up to you, law enforcement, anything like that, what do they ask for? The paperwork, right? Yep. They don't give a shit about the living, breathing human being standing in front of them.
No, they have to put you in.
They need to identify you through the paperwork to see if you're in their jurisdiction, right? Yep. And then what you say during that process matters as well. So again, since U.S. citizenship is a legal fiction, a creature of the mind, there's a mentality shift that needs to change in order for you to stop being a U.S. citizen. You have to purge your mind of all the privileges and benefits you grew accustomed to having as a U.S. citizen, meaning you have to take control and responsibility of your life in every aspect. You must learn how to, quote unquote, to be in this world, but not of this world. That's scripture, ain't it?
Yes, sure is.
To be in this world, but not of this world, as summarized in biblical scripture. In the context of this society, it means learning how to live in the private and public. Learn how to separate yourself from the traps of the corporate world / matrix. So proof that the United States is a corporation. Corporations is defined as a body, corporate legally authorized to act as a single individual and artificial person. That's like AI.
Yes.
Created by royal charter, perception, or act of the legislator, and having authority to perceive certain rights in perpetual succession. The following are a list of roles within a corporation. You got board of directors, chief executive officer, chief operating officer, chief financial officer, president, treasurer, chief marketing officer, vice president, chief technology officer, operations management, chief information officer, secretary, shareholder, comptroller, and chief human resources officer. Man, that's a lot of tribal chiefs, man.
Right.
That's a lot of chiefs and no Indians.
Exactly.
Or we're the Indians?
Yeah, we were.
So they're the chiefs and we're just the Indians. Okay. Right. Because we don't know who the hell we are yet.
That's right.
So one way we could prove the United States as a corporation is by seeing that it meets all the qualifications and has many of the same corporate roles that other corporations have. But in order to submit more proof, let's look at various case law and citations of authority that substantiates the fact that the United States is and has always been a corporation. The United States is a government and consequently a body, politic, and corporate capable of attaining the objects for which it was created by the means which are necessary for their attainment. This great corporation was ordained and established by the American people and endowed by them with great powers for important purposes. The government acts by its own agents. The United States versus Maurice. That was what I read from. United States versus Maurice. Maurice. 2 Brock 96 109 26 Foxtrot 1211. CAS.1211. The reason why states are bodies, politic, and corporate is simple. Just as a corporation is an entity that can act only through its agents. The state is a political corporate body. It can act only through agents and can command only by laws. And that's Salem versus New York Department of Corrections and Community Supervisions, United States District Court, New York, September 16th, 2019. Corporations are also of all grades and made for very objects. All governments are corporations created by usage and common consent. And what? Created by usage and common consent. See that?
Yep.
By common consent. Or grants and charters which create a body politic for prescribed purposes, but whether they are private, local, or general in their objects for the enjoyment of property or the exercise of power, they are all governed by the same rules of law as to the Constitution and the obligation of the instrument by which the incorporation is made. One universal rule of law protects persons and property. Proprietors of Charles River Bridge versus proprietors of Warren Bridge, 36 U.S. 4/20/1837. So the United States means a federal corporation, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States, or an instrumentality of the United States. So the United States government is a foreign corporation with respect to a state. So we got de facto and de jure, right? And that's where I'm okay. I'm going to read this. So additionally, we must remember that 13 original colonies were literal corporations of the crown. And like all corporations, they were ruled by limited governments established by their charters. So it shouldn't come as a surprise when people state that the United States is a corporation. The facts are clear and concise on this matter. It is only the willfully ignorant that clings to their miseducation in the face of truth and facts. So the United States government or corporation, as people know it today, is indeed a government de facto. It feigns itself as the legitimate republic form of government that's mandated to all Union states as per Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. Yet upon daily observation, it doesn't respect private rights nor serve the interest of the people. Due to improper civic instructions, the people view their creation, the government, their government, as their superior, or people acting as government, as their superior, when in fact, in a republican form of government, the people are the true source of political power. Having been groomed into corporate servitude and welfare mentality, teaching real fundamental civics is a daunting task. The highlighted portion from the second part of the definition is to emphasize that the military aspect of a de facto government. This highlights and exposes how and why the U.S. corporations, through its agents, act in the manner in which they do. It explains the ongoing militarization of the police, and it explains why the police enforce corporate policy under threat, duress, and coercion. A de facto government rules by might, with a blatant disregard for the rights of the people. The de facto government controls the education and the circulation of information of its subjects. Hence, why it attaches connotative labels on people who stand on de jure constitutional principles. People that stand up for the de jure constitutional rights get labeled, right?
Yeah, sovereign citizen, which they labeled that as a terrorist, right? or
That's
you're
one.
just trying to get views, right? Or
Conspiracy theorists.
Conspiracy theories, or all sorts of stuff.
Right.
Laugh at them like it's a joke.
So they get labeled, the people that stand on the constitutional principles and the de jure, they get labeled extremists. They get labeled oxymoron sovereign citizens, nationalists, conspiracy theorists. They get labeled militant and anti-vaxxer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Are broadcasted by the controlled media to slander and discredit people who are in line with truth and freedom, and it exposes the corrupt de facto government for what it truly is, based on how they react, right? How they treat you.
Yeah.
So the purpose of this slanderous labels are to program into the minds of the unaware populace certain buzzwords. Remember I said they could just throw out terrorist on them and everybody would just believe it.
Yes.
Certain buzzwords like sovereign citizen, conspiracy theorist, militant. It's an anti-vaxxer. So the certain buzzwords that are then associated with perceived negative people and actions and groups etc., in hopes to deter them away from the rhetoric, from the teachings and influences of said people or groups. Because as the saying goes, it's impossible to enslave an educated people. So they can't enslave you if you're educated. So they throw labels on those that are trying to assist in the education process via their actions, maybe presenting information. This is why the media constantly broadcasts negative images of the people who speak and stand on the truth, enforce the Constitution, or benefits the collective through moral principles. The controlled media are masters at distorting the truth to make it seem crazy or that's illegal. So it pulls up a declared state of emergency. Another way to prove that the United States is in reality a de facto administrative state is through the following Senate document: emergency power statutes. The provision of federal law now in effect delegating to the executive extraordinary authority in time of national emergency. That's why they keep going to war, right? Yep. And this was November 19th, 1973. Report of the Special Committee on the Termination of the National Emergency in the United States. So, your own admittance is what makes you a U.S. citizen. Did I go to the bottom? Yeah.
What, that one video at the bottom?
Oh, there it is. All right, I got you.
Restraining order. Her ex kidnapped her. You ever really look at a cop? I mean, really stare through the badge, past the uniform, into what they are. They ain't here to protect and serve you. That's a damn slogan. Like a fast food jingle, it is marketing, propaganda. What they are is the state's enforcers, government-sanctioned gangsters, the muscle. Just like the mafia, but with a legal budget, military gear, and union protection. You think you're free? The second you step out of line, hell, even if you don't step out of line, that badge becomes a gun in your face and a boot on your neck. The Supreme Court already told us the truth. In DeShaney versus Winnebago in 1989, the state let a father beat his kid into brain damage. Cops knew, did nothing. Court said, oh, well, they don't got to protect you. In Gonzalez versus Town of Castle Rock 2005, a woman begged the cops to enforce a restraining order. Her ex kidnapped and murdered her kids. Cops sat on their hands. SCOTUS? No duty to protect. That ain't justice. That's the system admitting we ain't shit to them. Cops don't exist to shield us. They exist to control us. And why? Because America never ended slavery. Read the 13th Amendment. It says slavery is illegal except as punishment for a crime. That little loophole, that's the whole damn prison industrial complex. Cops snatch poor folks, black folks, mentally ill folks, lock them up, strip their rights, work them for pennies, legalize slavery. Ain't changed since slave patrols hunted down runaways. Only now it's a squad car instead of horses, body cams instead of whips, but the job's the same. Catch the bodies, fill the cells, make Wall Street rich. Prison labor's a $14 billion industry in 2025. That's not justice, it's a hustle. And they got quotas, man. You heard me? Arrest quotas, ticket quotas. If crime drops, they create more crime. Harass folks over broken tail lights, loitering, resisting when you ask why, and it's targeted. Black folks are nearly 6 times more likely to be incarcerated than white folks. Native folks, 38% more likely to be shot dead by cops. And if you're unhoused, mentally ill, queer, they don't protect you, they stalk you. Meanwhile, the real criminals, the CEOs, the landlords, corrupt politicians, they don't see a cell because they own the system. Cops don't chase them. Cops protect them from us, from you, from the people. Malcolm X said it plain. The police are in our community not to promote our welfare or our security, but to contain us, to intimidate us, to brutalize us, and to murder us. And he wasn't being poetic, he was being honest, because that's what they do still every damn day. So stop pretending they're heroes. Stop thanking them for their service. They ain't your friend. They're the state's watchdogs, and you are the target. We don't need reform. You can't polish a boot that's stomping on your throat. We need abolition. We need solidarity. We need rage with direction. They don't protect us. We protect us.
We do.
And that is true. And there was a Supreme Court case where they said that they are not there to protect us. Period. They protect the establishment, right?
And they do whatever the mayor says.
Go all the way down.
Oh.
That one.
Oh, this is for the roads and the bridges. Oh yeah, that's a
How
good
we
one.
could just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me play this one.
Yeah, that one's good too.
So this is where we're at right now. While everybody freaks out over this damn Epstein shit show. Bunch of lies.
Let me speak plainly. If you're out here calling people sovereign citizens as a slur, mocking, dismissing, or gaslighting men and women for standing up for their rights, then let me make something real clear. You're not just ignorant, you're a coward. You're the kind of person who bows to fraud that mocks those who resist it. You stand behind a badge and a robe or a keyboard propping up corporate law disguised as justice. And when someone actually knows the law, you attack their character instead of addressing their facts. That's not noble. That's not professional. That's not patriotic. That's pathetic. You slander good men and women, not because they're dangerous, but because they're educated. Because they don't roll over for unlawful stops, because they challenge jurisdiction, because they know the difference between statutory policy and codified law, and that threatens you. Not because they're wrong, but because you built your illusion of authority on the assumption that people would stay silent. Well, guess what? They're not silent anymore. We're not silent anymore. The ones you call sovereign citizens are actually sovereign souls, peaceful people, lawful people, people who've done more reading than your academy ever required. People who live with honor but aren't afraid to stand their ground. And you throw around terms you don't even understand. You use sarcasm as a shield for your own lack of education. You insult what you feared. You mock what you're too lazy to learn. And all it does is reveal your character. Because it takes real weakness to ridicule someone who stands on truth. It takes real arrogance to slander someone trying to restore what this country was built on: freedom, accountability, and lawful governance. You don't have to agree with them, but if your first instinct is to belittle them, to smear them, to label them without listening, then you're part of the problem. And that uniform you wear, or that title you hide behind, means nothing. Because real authority doesn't fear educated citizens. It fears exposure. And guess what? We are that exposure. We are that awakening. And we're not going anywhere. So the next time you hear someone speaking truth about sovereignty, contracts, jurisdiction, and lawful rights, listen. Because what you call nonsense might be the very lifeline this country needs to wake the hell up. And if that bothers you, good. That means it hit home.
So we're going to talk about the government. If not for the government. This is a little reminder. This is an older video, probably a few years old. But it goes along with what we're trying to drill home tonight.
Howdy, Larkin Rose here. I'm feeling slightly less than entirely patient and polite today, so if this video gets slightly caustic, too bad. This video is for all the people who are constantly saying, well, if not for government, we couldn't have roads, or we couldn't have police, or nobody would care for the poor, or we wouldn't be protected, whether it's from local thugs or from foreign invaders. We wouldn't have this, we wouldn't have that. So thank goodness we have government and taxes, because we wouldn't have any of those things. And the first way I'd respond to that is by pointing out the assumptions that underlie that complaint, that argument. Basically what people are saying, because let's be clear about what the terms mean, government is the people who boss everybody else around. And taxes are those people demanding money from us. So they basically tell us, hand over a whole bunch of money and we'll decide how to take care of you. We'll decide how to spend your money. If we don't like it, too bad. We don't really have a choice. Like, well, you can vote in a few years and maybe something will change, even though it totally won't. So that's what people are saying. Basically, if we didn't have a ruling class stealing our money and then supposedly spending it to protect us, how could we possibly have roads or anybody to protect us? The implication is that in this country, for example, 300 million people would just sit around thinking, oh, we can't do it. Without politicians and tax collectors, we can't have a road, we can't protect each other, and we can't. And it rests on this bizarre assumption that things that almost everybody wants, they wouldn't do anything to make happen unless there were politicians forcing us to give them money so they can make it happen. And so an example I like to use is, let's apply the same argument to food, because food is pretty darn important. I think everybody can agree. Let's apply the same argument that statists use about the roads or caring for the poor or protection or anything like that. The argument would go like this. Now, in the context of food, listen how idiotic this is. If we don't have government demanding money from all of us under the threat of caging us, and that's what taxation is, here's the money you have to give us, here's the nasty things we do to you if you don't. If that didn't happen so that they could build a big food production and distribution system and feed us, well, we'd all starve. We'd all just sit around saying, gosh, I wish we had food, but no politicians and tax collectors. We're just going to sit around and starve to death. Now, in this country, nobody would believe something that stupid, because all you have to do is go to a supermarket and see a perfect example of really efficient, organized cooperation that nobody is forced to do. There is no, if you're going to make the argument that people make about roads and protection and all that, you'd say, well, nobody is forced to make any food for anybody in this country. How do you know everyone's just going to say, well, it's not my job? Then we'll all starve to death. There's no guarantee. There's no master plan guaranteeing that we'll all have food. So obviously we're all going to starve if we don't have an authoritarian government stealing our money and then making food and giving it to us. Because golly gee, we couldn't possibly do it voluntarily ourselves. Again, in this country, nobody makes that argument because they see it happening voluntarily. Nobody involved is forced to do that. Nobody is forced to make you a single bite of food. There is no guarantee at all from anybody. And yet, Americans are, by and large, hugely overweight. Obviously, we don't have a lack of food. We have a lack of healthy food. But obviously, we see that example. Oh, we can handle that. Voluntarily, mutual cooperation, that's fine for food. But for some reason, it's not okay. And we can't even fathom the idea of the exact same thing handling roads or handling protecting us or other things that almost everybody wants. So in the question is this bizarre assumption that everybody will sit around really, really, really wanting something, but because there aren't politicians bossing us around and stealing our money, well, how could we possibly do it? And one of the most common things is, who will build the roads? Which is amazingly stupid to me. Just amazingly stupid. I have here in my pocket a little tiny thing. With this little tiny thing, I can be most places in this country and call people all over the world. And I own it myself. I'm not anywhere near rich these days, but I own one. Almost everybody I know has one of these. A little thing that can fit in your pocket, and just on a whim, you can open it and talk to somebody who's on the other side of the planet. And there was no coercion. Nobody forced anybody to make one of these. This is the result of voluntary cooperation. And that's it. Free trade. Organization, yeah, good. Cooperation, yeah, good. Coercion, which is what government is, and taxation, which is theft, didn't need that to do this. So what these people are telling me, oh, we wouldn't have roads if we didn't have government, is that somehow Free individuals, relatively free, interacting voluntarily can make it so I can talk to almost anybody in the world on a little thing that fits in my pocket on a budget that is not a very good budget at the moment, but I still have one of these. That freedom, not authoritarianism, can supply me with this, but freedom cannot achieve a flat place, because that's what a road is. It's a flat place from here to there, because we have these machines that take us from here to there. By the way, we don't have those machines because of government. We have those machines because of free enterprise and voluntary interaction and cooperation. The idea that freedom can make a car but can't make a flat place is just idiotic. You really think we can't make a flat place? And so I ask people, and they say, well, we'll build roads. Are you really telling me that you really and truly think that if government fell off the face of the earth, 300 million people in this country, 7 billion if you want to include the whole planet, would sit around in their houses thinking, golly, I wish I could go visit Fred, but I can't, because there's not a flat thing from me to him, and I don't know how to do it. And the other 300 million or 7 billion people, we can't possibly do it because there aren't any politicians and tax collectors. If they were here, we could do it. If they were here to boss us around and steal our money and really inefficiently build a flat place, then we'd be set. Then I'd be comfortable and I could be confident that I could get places. I could visit Fred. I could go shopping. But now we're all going to sit in our houses wishing we could go to the corner store, but we can't, because, golly, how could we possibly make a flat place from here to there? We can make these where you can talk to anybody in the world. We can make machines that you drive around in, but no, we couldn't possibly make a flat place. And when people say, well, who will build the roads? The first answer is the same damn people who do it now. Politicians and tax collectors don't build the friggin' roads. Have you ever seen one out there? No, you haven't. They steal our money, waste most of it, do all their corrupt games, and then they pay other people. Here's an idea. How about if we pay those other people who actually build the stinking road? And the fact that that doesn't occur to people is a great indication of how well indoctrinated people are by the rulers, who will perpetually tell us, you can't organize anything, you can't achieve anything, you can't do anything unless we are here to force it on you. And it's, again, there are a zillion examples, whether it's caring for the poor or protection or roads, obviously, where most of the population will say, I'm really concerned that poor people won't be taken care of, which means most of the population wants people in need to be taken care of. And if we didn't have politicians stealing our money, how would it happen? Here's an idea. Take some money out of your pocket and give it to one of the people that you think needs help. Why would you not comprehend that, but you would comprehend some guy 1,000 miles away passing a law to send an armed thug to take your money, to waste 90% of it, and then give a little bit to somebody who may just be defrauding the system or may actually need it? And the amount of indoctrination required to make people even ask these questions of how could we possibly do this without government? What do you think government adds to the equation? It doesn't add any resources. It doesn't create anything. Everything it gives away, it steals from us first by way of taxation. It doesn't add any skills. It doesn't add any knowledge. The people who are here would still be here if the institution of government fell over. We have all the know-how. We have all the resources, all the technology. The only thing it adds is one group that's imagined to have the right to violently assault and control and extort everybody else. So what the question really means is, how can we have a road, or how can I help that poor, or how could that poor person be helped, or how would anybody protect us if there wasn't a gang of thugs with permission to violently control and rob us? And when you recognize that that is literally what the question means, you already see how utterly idiotic it is. And it's completely the result of authoritarian statist indoctrination. Nobody would come up with that on their own. And you obviously don't see that with the example of food or cars or cell phones or anything else. Nobody says, we won't be able to talk to each other unless there's a gang of thugs that's allowed to boss us around and steal our money. And just economically, how stupid you have to be to think that's a good idea. Here are your choices. Let's do this. I'll give you these two choices for how you will be fed from now on. Either you can go spend your own money wherever you want. You can go to the supermarket or the local this or the local grocery, whatever you want. You can go decide what you want, and they'll tell you the price. You decide what you're going to buy and how much. And you can go to different places, and you can shop around. You can do all that. That's option number one. But let me warn you, option number one does not give any guarantee that you will be fed. There's no master plan forcing people to feed you. So, oh my gosh, you better be really scared of that option, despite the fact that you can do it day after day, and it works really darn well and feeds pretty much not only this country, but with a massive surplus. So that's option number one that apparently statists are scared of. Option number two is politicians will take as much money of yours as they decide to take. Then they will decide what, if anything, they will buy with that money in terms of food to give to you, to feed you. Do you really think that will serve you better, that will feed you better? Yeah, I'm much more comfortable that I'll have I'll be fed, I'll be secure, everything will be okay. If a gang of thugs who doesn't really care about me steals my money and then decides what, if anything, to give me back from what they stole. But that is implied in the question, whatever you put in the blank. How are we going to have blank if not for government? What you're saying is, how can we, the people who really want roads and food and cell phones and protection and all the things that almost everybody wants, how can we possibly have that unless we give someone permission to steal our money and boss us around and then decide what they're going to give us? And the same thing applies no matter what you put in the blank. How will we possibly do blank without government? One of the silly ones is caring for the poor. How will we care for the poor? Think of what that means. Like when more than half the country votes for a party to take care of the poor, it's more than half of the country saying, we're really concerned and we want to make sure that the less fortunate are taken care of, but we don't believe that normal people acting in freedom will take care of them. Well, if the people didn't care about the poor, they wouldn't win the election. By definition, if you vote for a welfare state, you're an idiot. Because either people are heartless bastards and you're going to lose, or people are compassionate and giving and you don't need to win. Just give them your stinking money. But people play the game, and that's the Democratic Party lives off of the idiotic notion that you're all so heartless that you should vote for us to steal your money to give to the poor. And half the country falls for it. Yeah, we're all so heartless that we voted you into office for the specific purpose of taking our money to help the less fortunate. That's just freaking brilliant. How about if half the country just gave their stinking money to the less fortunate? And then the less fortunate would all be rich because it would be 1 trillion times more efficient than the government version of welfare ever is. Also, it would be actual charity instead of mass theft and corruption and fraud and all that fun stuff. But what takes the cake, the ultimately insane thing, whatever you put in that gap, how can we have blank without a parasitic ruling class and a bunch of hired thieves? It's just a stupid question, but it's extra super stupid when what's in the blank is, how will we be protected? Who will protect us from thieves and robbers if we don't have government? It's the most idiotic question. It's also the most frequent question from statists. So here's what the question literally means. If we don't give a certain gang of people permission to violently control us and take our money under threat of putting us in a cage, who will protect us from people who might commit aggression against us and take our money? Wanting government for that is exactly as brilliant as saying, we have to have a carjacker in our town, otherwise somebody might steal our cars. Government is an appointed thief. If you don't think taxation is theft, first of all, you're a really well-trained slave. Second of all, try not paying. See what happens. See if they say, oh, it's quite all right. Or if they say, no, you're going to pay, or we're going to take your stuff, or eventually we'll put you in a cage. And when people say, that's not theft, because we get something back. Learn to think. And I use this example all the time, and all I ever get is stupid looks from statists in response. If I robbed you at gunpoint of $100, and the next day I gave you a sandwich, and you said, what? I said, hey, now everything's fine. because you benefited. I gave you a service. I gave you lunch, so that retroactively makes it okay that I robbed you at gunpoint. Would you buy that argument? No, you'd say that doesn't make it okay. Okay, you gave me a sandwich. And yet every statist makes the exact same argument when it comes to government. Will we get some stuff for it after they demand our money under threat of violence and putting us in a cage? Then we get services or goods. We don't get what we asked for, and we get lots of things we didn't ask for, but we kind of get something, and that retroactively makes it okay for them to say, give us this much of every paycheck you make, or we're sending men with guns to take your property. And the slaves justify their own enslavement. I'm proud to pay my taxes. I'm proud to get robbed by a parasitic ruling class and get a little bit back and feel good about it. Like, not only is that legitimate and justified, but I feel proud that I let myself get robbed by a bunch of crooks and parasites. But again, the ultimate thing is protection. When people say, who will protect us from aggressors and thugs and thieves if we don't have a government? Even though what government is, by its very nature, is a gang of aggressors and thugs and thieves. They issue commands. Every law they pass is a command backed by a threat of violence. You have to do this. You're not allowed to do that. Here are the nasty things we will do to you if you get caught disobeying. I mean, everybody knows that, even though they don't usually say it in terms that blunt and honest and accurate. But to say we need taxes to be protected is as stupid as you can get. It's saying we need theft to avoid theft. And the fact that people are trained to use different words so that this theft sounds okay. It's legalized. It's taxation. And we voted for the people who robbed us. Like, we got to elect our local carjacker, and that means he represents us when he demands our car and points a gun in our face. He's serving us as he steals our car because he's going to use that car and sell it and make money to make sure nobody else steals our car. That is the essence of government. And the fact that you have hundreds of millions of victims of that scam vehemently defending it and saying, I'm not going to give that up. I don't want to give up government. Who would protect us? I don't want to give up the biggest aggressor on the planet, the biggest thief on the planet. Look at your tax bill and see how much private crooks steal from you. So before you ask that question, before you ask, how could we possibly have roads or protection or water or air or Christmas or Santa Claus or any of the zillion things that statists imagine we can't possibly have without a ruling class, think about what the question actually means. Because when you get to the point where you understand the implications of your own question, asking, how can we possibly have this without a parasitic gang of thugs robbing us? When you actually understand what you're really asking, you won't ask the question because you will realize it's completely freaking idiotic.
That's all, folks.
Yeah, like you said, the roads will be built by the same people that do the roads. Cars will still be fixed by the same people that fix our cars. Everything's functions anyway.
Yep.
We don't need. He's saying we don't need somebody to be in the middle of all that, right?
I don't know what that was. You jamming in the background? All right. So now we got that out of the way. Hopefully that opens some minds. This is what happens when you stand up to AIPAC. You actually do go to jail.
He was the only U.S. congressman ever expelled and sent to prison for standing up to everyone. The FBI, the IRS, and the Israel lobby, which he claims costs him everything. For U.S. James Traffic. Take a listen.
Let me make sure I'm sharing. Yeah, I am sharing. Okay. We're good. Oh. Let me go to share screen. I don't know why I closed it out. Here we go. I'm glad I checked that.
Yeah.
I learned from my mistakes. At least I try. All right, here we go. We have to go back a few decades here to see some arrest.
Right.
Because they're very few and far between. And
But he was actually calling out things, right?
Yeah, you're fixing to find out. Yeah. We're gonna get.
He was the only U.S. congressman ever expelled and sent to prison for standing up to everyone: the FBI, the IRS, and the Israel lobby, which he claims cost him everything. Who was it? Former U.S. Congressman James Traficant. Take a listen to this.
I'm Jim Traficant, former congressman from the state of Ohio, the #1 target of American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee years ago. They put me in prison because they couldn't beat me with a gun and basically destroyed my life over it. And if I have to look back, I'd have to say that they were pretty successful.
So why did the Israel lobby dislike him so much? Well, he refused to take their money during one of his political campaigns, and he also supported an elderly auto worker in his district that was falsely accused of being a Nazi camp guard called Ivan the Terrible. The Israeli Supreme Court ultimately cleared him of this. However, Jewish organizations and the Israeli lobby had a huge distaste for James Traficant after this incident. Separate from all of this, James Traficant also had a huge, pretty big mouth. Take a listen to this.
I called the members of the House of Representatives a bunch of political prostitutes. They demanded my words be stricken. They jumped up like 100 wounded TV evangelists. So finally I said, okay, I apologize. When I went outside, there was this little stringer group, and they said, tell us what you really feel, Jim. And here's what I said. I said, I want to apologize to all the hookers in America for having associated them with the United States House of Representatives. Yeah, I think it's a big whorehouse.
The guy's crazy, and his big mouth definitely played a role in making him stand out. He was also actually put on an AIPAC hit list. Yes, AIPAC has hit lists of U.S. congressmen that it deem is, quote, anti-Israel.
Oh,
here's an article
who's
that was published.
Who's on the hit list now? Is it Massey? Ain't Massey on the hit list right now? But we got to primary him out of there, huh?
Yeah.
Got to get rid of him. Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing we're dealing with right now.
Like the mafia.
If you don't go along with the get along, you got to go. Ain't that right, Senator Massey?
Back in 1992, in the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs, the secret section in the Israel's U.S. lobby that stifles American debate. Under lock and key are hundreds and hundreds of such files on people and organizations that AIPAC deems to be, quote, anti-Israel. Among many of these politicians are highlighted in yellow, James Traficant. However, what really sealed the fate of former U.S. Congressman James Traficant is when he started to threaten about speaking up about 9/11. Take a listen to this.
But I don't think they'd have moved on me so fast if it weren't for 911. They knew, because I'm sure they had my phone tapped all those years.
Right.
All my phones. That I started to get calls about 911, and I didn't mention what they were. And I didn't mention the names, because I can't verify. But I was trying to get information on very powerful people who were involved and made millions of dollars on illegal arms sales to terrorist nations such as Al Qaeda and others. We armed them. They got those weapons from America.
If you think that was bad, just wait. It gets worse, because former U.S. Congressman James Traficant started to question Israel's role in 9/11. Take a listen to this.
I have no specific knowledge of what happened in 911. But as a former sheriff, I always looked at one particular dynamic when it was involved with any type of an event like this. Who benefited? It put us into war in the Mideast. We whacked out Iraq. We've destabilized Iraq. And I do know this. The Israelis have had spies working the midnight oil in this country, trying to get us to attack Syria, trying to get us in to attack Iran. Enough is enough now. And I think an investigation should be ensued as to who really perpetrated the 911 situation, because I don't believe it myself.
If nothing else made him a target to the Israeli lobby, him simply questioning an Israeli implication to 9/11 would have put a big bullseye right on his head. And he knew this. You might remember that viral interview he did with Greta Van Strassen on Fox News. Here's a small clip of it. Take a listen.
I believe that Israel has a powerful stranglehold on the American government. They're controlling much of our foreign policy. They're influencing much of our domestic policy. America is in danger if America doesn't take back the government. without foreign interference.
Immediately after this, the headlines went after him. He got accused of being anti-Semitic. NBC called him disgrace. And Sean Hannity with Fox News actually got him on his show afterwards. Take a listen to this.
That's not what you said. You said they're controlling our foreign policy. They're controlling our domestic policy.
Yes, and I believe they are.
Hear me now.
I believe they control the Senate and the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
That's insane.
And they're controlling our foreign policy.
Congressman, that's
Well,
conspiratorial nutjob stuff.
Did y'all see that? That's your Sean Hannity compromised. Trying to do a hit job. There's your guy right here.
And they're controlling our foreign policy. They're controlling our domestic policy.
Yes, and I believe they are.
Hear me now.
I believe they control the Senate and the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
That's insane.
And they're controlling our foreign policy.
Congressman, that's
that's
conspiratorial nutjob stuff.
It literally looks like the only reason Sean Hannity brought him on Fox News is simply to disparage and berate him. However, this isn't a surprise from Sean Hannity. He's a staunch Zionist, and Tucker Carlson actually made an Instagram post recently about U.S. airstrikes on Iran nuclear facilities and who was pressuring President Trump to attack and strike Iran. The real divide isn't people between who support Israel and the people who support Iran or the Palestinians. The real divide is between those who casually encourage violence and those who seek to prevent it, between warmongers and peacemakers. Who are the warmongers? They would include anyone who calling President Trump today to demand airstrikes and other direct U.S. military involvement in a war with Iran. On that list, first and foremost, Sean Hannity, Mark Levine, Rupert Murdoch, Ike Perlmutter, and Miriam Adelson. At some point, they will have to answer to this, but you should know their names now. What's also interesting is they'll accuse him of being anti-Semitic for saying that U.S. foreign policy is being controlled by Israel, and that Israel influences much of our domestic policy. Yet when Israeli prime ministers go on Israeli radio and state that they have undue influence in the United States, we're supposed to just ignore that? Take a listen to this.
And they've gone so far as having Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon making a statement on Israeli radio, October 3, 2001, the following: "We, the Jewish people, control America, and the Americans know it." And no one read that in a newspaper in this country. Well, first of all, right when I was running, they tried to get me $10,000 cash. And I told them, you keep your money and I'll keep my vote. So I think I was targeted before I ever walked down there.
He's being accused of anti-Semitism for making the exact statements that Israeli prime ministers are making about Israeli influence in the United States. Yet he's at fault for making the exact same statements. He said repeatedly that the Israeli lobby ultimately threw him in prison. Here's another short clip from that interview with Greta Van Strassen.
And if you open your mouth,
the Israeli lobby is what's holding up the Epstein shit. That's who was involved, right?
Yes.
That's why you're not seeing any arrests. And I messed up on this. Right? Netanyahu's your president. Or somebody's president. He ain't mine. Corporation. There we go.
Who was it? Former U.S. Congressman in the United States. We're supposed to just...
Hold on, guys. We already heard that.
Greta Van Strassen.
And if you open your mouth, you get targeted. And if they don't beat you at the poll, they'll put you in prison.
James Traficant was ultimately charged with 10 federal counts related to bribery and racketeering. I'm going to make a full video on why his entire trial was a complete kangaroo court. Some of Traficant's witnesses later admitted they flipped against Traficant to avoid tax charges or prison time. One witness, contractor Richard DeTore, signed a sworn statement that the feds threatened him, stating that if he refused, they would indict him. He did refuse, and they ultimately did indict him. Take a listen to what Traficant said on the House floor.
I expected him out here to be expelled, because I think Congress doesn't like difficult positions. I've been the target of administration for a long time. None of the tapes I gave you or transcripts I gave you were introduced as evidence in court. I was able to present no defense. I was even prohibited from discussing a vendetta against me. But you know, when you put somebody in jail for the rest of their life, He's a fellow member of Congress who has been targeted, no less. You should have some evidence.
From what I can tell, there was only one other U.S. congressman that stood up in support of James Traficant, and that was U.S. Congressman Ron Paul. Take a listen to what he said here.
Rise in support of the motion by the gentleman from Ohio. That trial bothers me. I don't accept it as a good, fair, legitimate trial. I don't think all the witnesses were heard that should have been heard. And I think some of the witnesses may well have been, quote, bribed into doing and saying certain things. When the gentleman finally gets an opportunity to come and defend himself, he gets 30 minutes? Really? And have you looked at the record? It happened in Ohio. It's a stack like that.
I'm going to be doing a full video on why that entire trial was an absolute joke. So if you want to watch it, make sure to click the subscribe button below.
And there you go.
Right. So that's why he got thrown in prison, allegedly. He was thrown in prison. So it shows you how they're all compromised in some way. So, something could happen to them, something could happen to their family members. So it's not, and they go in there not knowing that, right? Like at first, like you said, they offered them $10,000, they bribe you, and then they offer you more. And then once you get in there, then you're compromised, right? Once you go make deals with them. And if they don't have something on you, they can make something up on you, right?
That's it. Call you anti-Semitic?
Or worse.
Especially when you start talking about who was involved with 9/11.
They can have false information on you. I mean, they could do all sorts of stuff. Think all what they could actually do using AI, all sorts of stuff.
That's all we got for tonight. Unless you got anything, what's today?
So I'm going to read this. I don't know if you can read it. It's kind of small. The people are sovereign, right above Lawful Rose.
All right. So the people are sovereign, are the sovereign. And here's the proof. Not that you needed it. People are supreme, not the state. That's Waring versus the mayor of Savannah. It goes back to Georgia. 60 Georgia at 93. It said 64.
Yeah.
This right here. That must be 19. So the people of the state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them not to know. Or it says like this: the people are in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. The people insist on remaining informed so that they may retain control over the instruments that they have created. Added statute 1953, C.1588, page 3270, section 1. I had to pull that up. The people are the recognized source of all authority, state or municipal, and to this authority it must come at last, whether immediately or by how you pronounce that? CIRCUIOTO. Circuitous route. That's Barnes versus District of Columbia, U.S. 540, 545, 23, semicolon 440, 441, page 234. The government is but an agency to the state being the sovereign people. State versus Chase, 175, Minnesota, 259, 220, November NW5. What is 951, 953? You got to go through each one of those. So sovereignty itself is, of course, not subject to law, for it is the author of source of law. But in our system, while sovereign powers are delegated to the agencies of government, sovereignty itself remains with the people, by whom and for whom all government exists and acts. And the law is the definition and limitation of power. The Congress cannot revoke the sovereign power of the people to override their will, as thus declared. Perry versus United States, 294 U.S. 330-353. That was 1935. The doctrine of sovereign immunity is one of the common law immunities and defenses that are available to the sovereign citizens of Minnesota. Will versus Michigan Department of State Police, 1988, 491 U.S. 58-105. The people of the state, as the successors of its former sovereign, are entitled to all the rights which formerly belonged to the king by his own prerogative. Lansing versus Smith, 1829. And that's all we got for tonight. And that's it. You got anything to close out with, Miss Shibyo? Anybody else? Mike, you with us?
You there, Mike?
Probably not. We're going to close out. Just love you all. Thank you for the prayers. Stay positive. Stay focused. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Good night, everyone. Love y'all.
The system is rigged. They want us to think it'll protect us, but that's a lie. We protect us. We do. Nobody else. Not the companies, not the scientists, not the government. Us.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it. By the way, it's the same big club they used to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. The big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls.
The good news is the elite across the world trust each other more and more. The bad news is that in every single country they were polling, the majority of people trusted that elite less. So
the owners of this country don't want that. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant.
Look at that.